Well, I think it's finally time I lived up to my name. In this video series, I'm going to be attempting to complete the most difficult Subnautica challenge I've ever attempted, and probably one of the most difficult Subnautica challenges anybody in this community has ever attempted. I'm going to be trying to beat Subnautica at 5 times speed. No glitches or speedrunning, just completing the entire game with this challenge. Now, you may be wondering, what does 5 times speed necessarily mean? Well, it essentially means that using console commands I sped up the entire game so it ran 5 times faster than it normally does. This means oxygen runs out 5 times faster, food and water run out 5 times as fast, and basically everything is sped up by a multiplier of 5. Everything except for the audio. And trust me, that's probably a good thing. Many of you may be thinking, oh come on Speedy, how bad can this really be? And I don't even have to answer that question, because right now, you're about to see. With the intro out of the way, I climbed the ladder, took a deep breath, and jumped right in. See how good of a spawn this is? Oh my gosh, we're right by one of these. This is perfect, perfect. Grab this. Ah! Crash fish! Did you see how fast that guy went? The beginning of this challenge was relatively simple. I quickly gathered as many materials as possible, keeping my eyes on the oxygen meter and watching for nearby crash fish, which were extremely annoying. I also knew I would have to worry about food very soon. The food in the life pod wouldn't last long. I quickly gathered the materials I needed and crafted myself an oxygen tank, fins, a knife, a scanner, and a repair tool. Using that, I was able to repair my life pod and radio. I was off to a good start. My spawn location was pretty lucky, and I quickly found the sea glide fragments I would need, along with the grav trap that would also be extremely useful. After a small amount of resource gathering, I was able to craft both the sea glide and the grav trap, and I knew the high capacity O2 tank was next. A quick trip to the Creepvine biome solved that problem, supplying me with some fragments along with the silver I needed to build it. After some exploration of the grassy plateaus, I found the necessary Seamoth fragments, but I still needed the mobile vehicle bay, which for some reason was harder to find than the Seamoth. Subnautica logic, am I right? And after some more boring resource collection, we had the almighty Seamoth, and this thing zooms in this challenge. Oh my gosh, dude, what? Oh my. Just wait for the prawn suit. But anyways, we were off to a great start, except for all the wasted time trying to catch fish. I really should have grabbed a reliable food source sooner. In preparation for the Aurora, I knew I would have to explore the grassy plateaus in search of laser cutter and propulsion cannon fragments, necessary tools for its exploration. I quickly crafted myself a rebreather to make the wreck diving easier, and soon enough I'd found the fragments I needed for the laser cutter, but it would be somewhat of a struggle to get the 2 diamonds necessary to build the tool. It was time for a trip to the sparse reef. I brought my new Seamoth, but unfortunately without the MK1, I couldn't venture below 200 meters, so I had to inch my way down in the Seamoth as far as I could go and then make a dive for the diamonds. One big issue with this is the bleeders that inhabit the sparse reef. Ah! Are you serious, dude? Dude, are you serious? In Speednautica, these things, as you can imagine, are 5 times as annoying. They drain your health so fast you can be dead without even realizing it. They made the trip a lot more terrifying than it had to be, and little did I know, this would not be the last time I had to deal with bleeders. Eventually, I had acquired the 2 diamonds I needed, along with a few useful fragments and other useful materials. In the process of exploring the reef, I even stumbled across a time capsule with tons of useful tools, including a scanner, which I already had, a habitat builder, repair tool, and laser cutter, which I didn't actually know I had until later when I went back to the life pod, built one, and then realized I already had one. Yeah, I'm kinda dumb sometimes. It happens to the best of us. Yeah, that was a joke. I'm honestly kind of stupid. Once the Aurora exploded, I built myself a radiation suit along with a flashlight. Once I had the propulsion cannon, I'd be good to go. In this time, the sunbeam decided now would be a good time to show up, so it was also probably a good time to head to the mountain and floating islands. There was also a decent amount of wreck diving for fragments that I needed to do. It was time for some traveling. I had some time to burn before the sunbeam arrived. I decided to spend it by going wreck diving in the grassy plateaus and sparse reef. I was able to acquire a few useful fragments, including the battery charger and propulsion cannon, which I promptly built in preparation for the Aurora. As the timer quickly approached 0, I traveled to the mountain island just in time to watch the sunbeam get obliterated by the quarantine enforcement platform. Afterwards, I explored the depths of the facility and discovered I was infected. The story on the mountain island was complete. It was time to head to the Aurora. I knew the Aurora was going to be pretty difficult. It was going to be harder to navigate in this challenge, and the hostile creatures would pose more of a threat. but I don't think anything could have prepared me for what was about to go down. I made it to the Aurora with no problems, but as I hopped out of my Seamoth and started to make my way around, I realized the damage from the cave crawlers was going to be a problem. Nevertheless, I made it inside without too many difficulties. I quickly began to explore the necessary places I needed to, determined to acquire as much food and water as I could carry, in order to save me the effort of making it. I quickly raided the Seamoth Bay for the Seamoth MK1, the Prawn Bay for the prawn suit fragments, the crew's quarters for the fragments and sustenance, and then finally, it was time to head to the drive core. Now, repairing the drive core is not necessary to beat the game. Nevertheless, for some reason, I decided it would be a good idea to try and fix it. Who knows what I was thinking. I made it to the room without any issues. There are exactly 11 breaches you need to fix in order to fix the drive core, and the water surrounding these breaches are absolutely infested with bleeders. My worst nightmare. I was able to repair 5 of these breaches before they found me. I took damage so fast that before I knew it I was at 16 health. My oxygen tank was also running out rapidly. I quickly fled the water and regrouped. Something had to be done. I used my remaining medkit, which boosted me up to 65 health. After taking a quick breather, I jumped right back in. I repaired 2 more breaches before another bleeder found me, but this time, I had a strategy. I stood still in one area and continuously swung my knife. The bleeders would swim up to me, only to be immediately stabbed by my thermal blade. And you can see the sheer number of bleeders that infest these waters. It's ridiculous. After I'd killed all, if not most of them, I quickly repaired the remaining breaches. Of course, one last bleeder tried to suck my blood before I could do so, but I was prepared. It was completely pointless, but nevertheless, I did it. I left the Aurora as quickly as possible. The lower section of the Aurora is not necessary, and since my health was so low, I decided against exploring it. After the Aurora, I took a quick trip to the floating island for the fragments I needed to build myself a good base, with an indoor grow bed. I grabbed myself one specific plant sample while exploring that island, one that would provide me with the sustainable food source I needed so badly, the bulbo tree. I don't really know why, but I love these things. They provide so much food and they regrow just as fast as you can eat them. And honestly, I should have grabbed these on the mountain island. But at least now, we wouldn't have to worry about sustenance as much, which had been a big issue up to this point. After a quick trip to the floating island, I took a quick break from my base building efforts to build myself a prawn suit. And trust me when I say, the prawn suit on Speed 5 is absolutely insane. Whoa. This is insane. Oh, I'm gonna totally fall through the floor. I decided to take the prawn suit on a quick materials run to test it out. I was able to find some incredibly good materials, including multiple stalker teeth. And it was during this test run that I encountered a problem that would plague me throughout the rest of this playthrough: falling through the floor. If you travel a little too fast in one of the submarines in this challenge, the ground doesn't have time to load properly. This can lead to your submarine glitching or falling through the floor, especially in the prawn suit. This is one of the biggest difficulties because you basically need the prawn suit to beat the game, and I prefer it over the Cyclops. And this would not be the last time I encountered this issue. Okay, so we just built this epic robot suit, which just so happens to have fallen through the floor. What do we do to get it back? Remember that part at the start about no glitches? Well, that wasn't entirely true. Using the mobile vehicle bay, I was able to glitch through the walls, swim down to the prawn suit, and fall into the jelly shroom cave. I was very lucky there was one nearby, otherwise the prawn suit would have been lost for good. I carefully navigated it to an exit, but quickly realized getting it out wasn't going to be easy. After lots of trial and error, I realized I was going to need to build a grapple arm. And the best place to find grapple arm fragments is in the Grand Reef. It was time for some more wreck dive, which, trust me when I say, isn't exactly fun in Speednautica. Eventually, I found the 2 fragments I needed. A quick trip to the blood kelp supplied me with the blood oil I would need, but I needed to build an outdoor grow bed to grow it into a sustainable source. It was time to finish base building. I gathered all the materials I needed and built myself a nice practical base with a modification station, whose fragments I'd found in a nearby wreck, as well as an indoor and outdoor grow bed, battery and power cell chargers, and plenty of storage space. I'd finally implemented a sustainable food source and a comfortable base of operations. My next goal was to build the Seamoth depth module MK3. The Seamoth is a lot easier to control than the prawn suit, and I wanted to use it over the prawn suit as much as possible. Once I had the right materials, I built it and used it for a trip to the Lost River to acquire some necessary materials I would need for my prawn suit. And while I was down there anyways, I decided to visit the disease research facility for further story progression. The trip there was relatively uneventful, although it was a little scary while traveling past some of the hostile fauna, but I made it there and progressed along in the story, scanning myself and learning my sickness was progressing. Pretty soon, I would have to head to the lava zone. Before heading home, I took a quick stop at the cove tree for the important material I needed, some nickel, which I would need for the prawn suit depth module MK1. The trip back to the surface was just as uneventful as the trip there, thank goodness for that. It was time to get my prawn suit back. In order to do so, I had to quickly build a moon pool from the fragments I'd found in the mushroom forest. I needed the moon pool as well as the vehicle upgrade console to build a grapple arm that would allow my prawn suit to be free from the jelly shroom cave, as well as to construct the depth module MK1. After a decent amount of resource gathering, I finally built both of those necessary components. Once I'd done that, I grabbed the blood ale from my farm, grabbed the resources I needed, and built the grapple arm, which allowed me to finally grapple my way out of the jelly shroom cave. We were ready to go even deeper, but first, I had to build the prawn suit depth module MK1. After a lot of resource gathering and using the nickel I had acquired earlier, I built the MK1. The prawn suit depth module MK1 allowed me to barely go deep enough to acquire the kyanite I needed for the MK2. However, that would mean going to the dreaded lava zone, and I had no idea how tough that was going to be. A quick trip to the Grand Reef gave me the drill arm fragments I needed for the kyanite, and after hunting for lots of diamonds, I constructed it and equipped it to my prawn suit. Once I had that, it was finally time to head to the Lost River again, in my prawn suit, with a threat of falling to the floor ever so imminent. This was going to be interesting. I made it to the cove tree with little problems, but I knew the lava zone was going to be a lot more difficult. Warpers and falling through the floor would be the main issue, but I was determined to try, and little did I know how badly this would go. As I approached the entrance to the lava zone, I took a deep breath and jumped right in. As I traveled along the inactive lava zone corridor, I started to feel anxious. I could hear and see warpers warping around me. Looking back, I was probably traveling a little too fast. This is apparent as we examine this close call I had while navigating through the corridor that could have been easily prevented had I been going slower. But the warpers drove me to go a lot faster than I probably should have. Eventually, I made it through the lava zone corridor and was now in the inactive lava zone chamber. My goal was to find and drill as much kyanite as possible for the MK2, so I started exploring. Okay, the drop rates on drillable kyanite is absolutely ridiculous. You can add this huge crystal the size of your prawn suit and only get one kyanite out of it. Before I knew it, I'd found 3 or 4 crystals and mined them all. That was probably all the kyanite I would need. But then I made a critical mistake. I didn't know how much I would need. I figured I'd had enough, but as I started to make my way to the corridor in order to exit, I stopped myself, second-guessing myself. It couldn't hurt to get more, I thought. I turned around and jumped back to get more after seconds of hesitation, and immediately fell through the floor. I have no clue why I decided to do that, but I was traveling too fast and the ground couldn't keep up. Before I knew it, I was through the ground and sinking way too quickly. I hopped out to avoid sinking any further. My prawn suit was already breaking. What would you do in this situation? Let's just say there is very little time to think here. Here's what I should have done. Immediately after falling through the ground, I should have paused and thought, what would be the best option in this situation? The prawn suit would break in seconds, and my air ran out 5 times as fast. The best thing I could possibly salvage out of this situation was the upgrades. The drill arm, grapple arm, and MK1. Everything I'd made so far. All my progress. This would be extremely difficult, I must point out, because when you get too close to the prawn suit in this situation, it sinks even further. Honestly, there was nothing I could do, and that's exactly what I did. Nothing. Not knowing what to do, because there was pretty much nothing I could do, I allowed the prawn suit to sink further. I hopped inside to get some oxygen for the last time, but it was too late to try anything at this point. The prawn suit was way too far down. I swam to the surface, and while I would normally say slowly died of asphyxiation, but it was pretty fast. Not a good way to go. I had failed. And it was all my fault. The warpers caused me to panic and go too quickly, and I didn't go back when I should have. All was lost. My prawn suit and all its upgrades. What was I gonna do now? Well, I'll tell you what. I certainly was not going to give up. Find out what happened in part 2, which is coming out soon. Will I be able to beat the game with this insane challenge? Well, we're about to find out. Let me know in the comment section below if you like this video. Do you have any video ideas? Subnautica challenges you think I should try? Any questions or concerns? Please let me know. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, it's free, plus it helps me out a ton. Help me reach 25,000 subscribers as fast as possible. Also, please check out my other Subnautica and Subnautica Below Zero content, you may like it. Be sure to check out my Discord server and Twitch channel, the links are in the description. If you want to be awesome, please support me on Patreon. Thanks to my patrons, Sir Lord Mister, Electrobyte, Skeptic, Baby Yoda, and King Ocho. Become a patron and support today. The link is in the description as well. And I will see you guys in the next video.